The seal will be inflated to a pressure that will be monitored over a few minutes, and basically monitoring to ensure that there is no loss of pressure, or also known as pressure decay. And if we did see a loss in pressure during this leak check, it would be an indication that don't injure their suit. It's also to ensure that they don't accidentally bump that side hatch during that ingress process. We want to make sure that really keep that seal. For that reason, we actually put protective fixturing that is removed right before the side hatch closure. We put that protective fixture there to help ensure that that side hatch is covered during ingress. So the leak check is now underway. As I said before, we're going to hold this pressure for a couple of minutes and just monitor it for any pressure loss. Percentage of violation, which is basically our chances of violating one of the weather rules that exist and we have to follow for that liftoff time, and that percentage decreased to only 25%. So everything's still continuing to look good in terms of an on time that liftoff targeting 5:37 p.m. Eastern. So we are now undergoing the leak check of the side hatch. This side hatch will remain closed until the crew splashes down in 10 days from now, weather dependent. We can see there inside the white room as the closeout team is performing that leak check. This is such a great view because we saw the astronauts add their signatures to the wall there earlier right before they got into the Crew Dragon. This was a tradition that SpaceX started with the Demo 2 mission. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley were the first to add their signatures to the white room wall. And of course, the Axiom-2 crew got to add their signatures along with the Axiom-1 signatures and Inspiration 4 there along the X that we see on the right-hand side.
It's great to think about the representation in all of those signatures too. You have, of course, all of those NASA astronauts in various countries that are involved in that space program, and now with that SpaceX logo, and the private astronauts that are going up, and now the sovereign nation companies, or sovereign nations that will be joining for private launches like today with Axiom. It's really cool to see that diversity and that breadth of representation.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, we are operating to a countdown today. That countdown helps ensure that all the teams are tracking to the same milestones for that T0 time. We are running with plenty of margin at this point in time. We are now awaiting the results of the side hatch leak check. Of course, we build margin into the timeline to allow us to reperform steps that might need to be done. So at this point in time, we've just been flying through all the milestones. So we are tracking with great margin at this point.
Okay, well, while we wait for results on that, we're going to go ahead and look at the crew a little bit more deeply. All right, the AX-2 mission commander is Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During the next 10 days, she'll extend her record as the American with the most amount of time spent in space. Here is a closer look at Peggy.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility.
I saw the first guys walk on the moon, Neil and Buzz, in 1969. I was 9 years old, and I thought, what a cool job. Of course, I was a farm kid from Iowa. How was I ever going to do that? I didn't tell anybody from the time I was 9, raising chickens and learning to fly and all that. I wasn't telling people that I wanted to become an astronaut because it sounded like an impossible dream. And it wasn't until the first females were selected and I graduated from high school, and that to me was when I decided, hey, maybe this is real. Maybe I really can be an astronaut. And it became a goal instead of just a dream.
Peggy Whitson became the first female commander of the International Space Station. She also set records in these categories: most days in space for a U.S. astronaut, and more hours spacewalking than any other woman.
She understands what human spaceflight really means when you approach it with that awe and respect and humility. It's like you're doing it justice.
The experience of just being in space is incredibly special and unique. But to me, the most important perspective is perspective. You look out the window, you see planet Earth, and it gives you this perspective of how important that we're all one. And we're building this place out in space to replicate the piece parts that we have on Earth. I'm really excited to take this crew up to the space station, number one, because they're all rookies, and this is going to be fun to just relive those first moments with them as they get into space and get to see their excitement and their expressions and joy.
AX-2 means there's a 2.0 to her career, and now she gets to help a wonderful company to take that next step in its mission.
Her congeniality and her manner, extremely comforting, and it gave me the confidence that I could do this.
She is inspiring. Personally, I look up to her and I want to be like her.
I don't know. I love everything about Peggy. She's my role model.
I'm Axiom astronaut Peggy Whitson.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. Let's get to know a little bit more about John.
Why do you do these things?
Well, they're fun. They help you find your edge. You know, I would say limit, but we don't really want to find the limit. You want to find the edge, I think.
John is a human dynamo, and he is multifaceted, and they can go off in any different direction. But that's just the way he is. You know, it's over and above.
I was probably the outlier in the group. I was always striking out and the one climbing trees and on roofs and setting things on fire. I grew up near an airport. I had access to airplanes. I started flying when I was 15. Got my license shortly when I was eligible. It was just something I did. In the early 60s, actually 1963, when Jim and I began flying, it was big news. It's easy for an 8-year-old at that time to fall in love with space. That was our fun. Cardboard boxes, rolling down hills, emulating space training, Jim and I pilots. So space just became part of the fabric of me, and it never left.
I'd heard about private astronaut travel before. A little bit of research pulled up Axiom Space and their mission.
Well, my wife brought it to my attention. She saw the news article of Axiom flying and said, hey, you can finally go to space. And the moment I heard about this opportunity, I knew I would be on board.
He's on a mission to encourage young minds to use their imagination. And from there, he says, possibilities are endless.
I'm taking a patch for the Middlesbrough Independent School Systems. This is their middle school who last year actually decided to become a STEM certified school. What I want to do is show teachers and educators the value of listening and paying attention to what is in a student and help nurture what they see in them. It's hard to go against your nature, but if you can listen to yourself and follow that voice, then you have an obligation to nurture that. I'm John Schaffner, and I'm the pilot of AX-2.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force.
We will be commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
And Dragon copies, we saw that.
Having trained at King Faisal Air Academy, as well as multiple bases in the U.S., Ali has flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years. Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020. Here's more on Ali.
I grew up in the southwest region of Saudi Arabia, in a very small town called Sabt al-Alaya. I've always wondered about planes and how they fly. Back then in Saudi Arabia, we did not have a lot of places or flying academies you could apply to. So I have to go and find a place that could train me. That's why I applied for the Air Force Academy to be a fighter pilot. The best moment for me is once I hit the throttles in full AB and the aircraft start rolling down the runway. And as I take off, I watch my shadow and see how fast I'm going. That gives me a joy that I cannot describe. I am Ali Al-Karni, and I am Mission Specialist 1 on AX-2. Being selected to be part of this mission makes me privileged and honored to represent my country. I was really surprised about the results out of the announcement. People are loving it. People are super supportive of the mission. I consider myself a newly married. I've been married for 3 years now. And I've had my daughter. She's 12 months old. And I want to share with them how big it is what I'm about to do. It is an amazing opportunity to be on top of a rocket filled with fuel and gas that are gonna boost you to space. The team is amazing. We have worked so much to make sure we have a good crew coherence, and right now I can say that we do complement each other. Every single one of us has been trained to do everything regarding this mission.
I would like to thank Axiom-2 for enabling us to go back to space and giving us this opportunity.
I have an amazing family. They are supportive of me throughout my career, and I want them to know before I step into the rocket that I love them, and I will always be there, whether physically or mentally, with them, and I'll do whatever it takes to make them feel happy and loved.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and also serving as mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. Here's a closer look at Rayana.
It's a historic moment for Saudi Arabia and the entire Arab world.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first ever female astronaut into space.
I was always into exploring new things. Research was one of the things that fulfilled that feeling for me. Trying to experiment, finding a piece of the puzzle that could solve a mystery. I never thought that I will ever be going to space, but at the same time, it feels like a dream come true. It's an overwhelming feeling, of course. Home for me is a small town. My dad had a little farm. He taught us how to plant. That was one of the first experiments. That was one of the most fascinating feelings. My grandmother. To me, she is my role model. I can say that my grandma is my biggest fan, and I'm very glad that I have my grandma's support.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first woman astronaut to the International Space Station. Rayana Barnawi, a biomedical researcher, is part of a private mission operated by Axiom-2.
Rayana, she is an amazing scientist. She's done stem cell research and breast cancer research, and we are really excited to have her on board the space station doing some of the same types of things in space.
It honestly feels like I am representing all Saudis' ambition, all female and all researchers as well. It's a big honor to be able to go to space and at the same time do the things that you love the most.
It's not just that you have a nation that's proud of you, but you are creating the dream and the opportunity for this next generation to become the next space engineers and creating the idea that the infinite is possible and that space is a true opportunity.
زي ما قال سمو ولي العهد محمد بن سلمان، نحن دولة للحالمين. أي حد عنده حلم يقدر يحلم عشان يوصل، وبدعم منه وبدعم من السعودية كاملة بإذن الله احنا حنوصل للهدف اللي احنا نبغاه. I am Saudi National Astronaut Rayana Barnawi.
We're now at T-minus 1 hour, 42 minutes and 55 seconds until liftoff of AX-2. We have confirmation that the side hatch was closed and we got a good leak check. So everything is continuing to progress on time.
Great. And as operations continue, we want to provide an overview of some of the science and research activities planned for the AX-2 mission. To help us unpack the breadth of Axiom-managed payloads is one who has helped every principal investigation team prepare for this mission, our very own chief scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe. She's at Kennedy Space Center in Florida with Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay. Sonia, great to see you, and we're excited to understand what's ahead in the next couple of weeks for our crew.
Thanks so much, Duke. It's great to be here with all of you as the excitement really builds toward launch. We're just a few miles away. In fact, you may be able to see the Falcon 9 rocket with the AX-2 crew on board just over my shoulder. And yes, I'm joined with Axiom Space Chief Scientist for Microgravity Research, Dr. Lucy Lowe. Lucy, how excited are you for what's to come?
Hi, Sonia. I mean, it's a fantastically exciting mission. There is an absolute massive amount of research that the crew is going to be doing, and I can't wait to see them get started.
And there is a massive amount amount of research they have to do, and we have just a little bit of time to cover it, so let's dive right in. It is packed for it, but what has been the scientific strategy for this mission, and what do we expect to see?
So the scientific strategy is really continuing what we did on AX-1, which is expanding access to microgravity for a whole new global community of researchers. So we're really excited to welcome on board our Saudi Arabian partners and see them do the research they want to do. We also have some opportunities to expand commercial opportunities by manufacturing products in space that could be beneficial for life here on Earth. So we have a glut of projects that are going to be doing all kinds of stuff about in-space manufacturing. So we're really excited about those.
Now, you've organized the portfolio into 5 main categories, and we're going to kind of touch on each one of them very briefly. Let's start with physical sciences. I noticed that from the list there is radiation protection research as well as some storm-related research that is looking at how weather and climate and seeding clouds. Tell me what this all means.
Exactly. So we have a really fun experiment that's brought from us from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia looking at cloud seeding. So they're looking at how silver iodide crystals can actually form water vapor in a specially designed chamber. So they're not only understanding how cloud seeding could be more effective here on Earth, but they're also looking with a vision to perhaps extraterrestrial agriculture, so maybe growing crops on the moon and in Mars in future.
Wow.
We also have projects looking at radiation shielding, so the sun spits out a bunch of radiation. So looking at how different kinds of polymers could actually protect the electronics on the space station could actually help with future spacecraft design. And then finally, you mentioned storms. We have some really fun projects where the crew are actually going to be trying to capture images of what we call transient luminous effects, which are events which occur just above thunderstorms at the same time that lightning strikes. And we can't see them from the ground because we're underneath the clouds. So on top of the clouds, we can see these phenomena, and it helps us understand more about our own weather and climate down here on Earth.
Excellent. So the next portfolio is life sciences. Research includes DNA, nanomaterials, and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicine. There's also research planned to build on AX-1 science modeling tumor organoids to better predict and treat cancers. Can you break down a few of those for us and tell me again what we can expect to see, what the astronauts will be doing up in space?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I refer to some of those in-space manufacturing projects, so the DNA-inspired nanomaterial that you referred to could actually be used as a therapeutic delivery agent in future, or as a scaffolding for degenerating joints. We have also projects looking at 3D bioprinted tissues, so looking at liver and kidney and seeing how they respond in microgravity, which could be potentially very informative for helping us understand regenerative medicine efforts. And then we have a whole other project on stem cell manufacturing, which could actually then help with lots of kind of clinical applications here on Earth. So lots of research on that end, not even to mention all of the human research that our crew are very willing participants in, where they're doing all kinds of experiments to see how the human body responds to space, how it adapts to microgravity, and how we can use that knowledge not only to make space travel more safe for humans in future, but also help us understand our own physiology back here on Earth a little bit better.
Okay, on to tech. The research being conducted here seems to be how can we automate more to take up less time doing things like data transfer. We know about that on Earth. What's it like up in space? Making communications with Earth easier and literally tracking where supplies and materials are on board. I mean, they have a lot of space up there inside the building, right? So they have to be able to track where everything is, loose bolts and whatnot. What stands out to you in this research?
So it's interesting you mentioned how much space there is up there because there's fairly limited space.
Yeah,
so we have some, they can't exactly. So we have some Axiom technology demonstrations where we're demoing some of our own technologies that we can use on Axiom Station in future. But we also have some really fun technology demonstrations from our partners that are sampling the air inside the ISS. They're using special sensors called quartz crystal microbalances that can detect tiny molecules in the air and tell us a bit about the air quality inside the ISS. And then we have a really fun project from the MIT Media Lab where they're looking at what they call a gravity countermeasures loading suit or a skin suit, which actually models some of the effects of gravity on our crew, and so it helps them prevent some of the physical deconditioning that astronauts see when they go into space.
Really important research.
Absolutely.
What do you think the air is like up there?
I hear it smells of electronical equipment.
Oh, okay.
So
we'll wait for those little cubes to tell us a little bit more information, figure out how we can scrub it. Okay. Partnerships also very important with Axiom Space since it started, and it's really great to hear about all of this research that's really coming from so many institutions, educational organizations. Lucy, how are you seeing the commercial opportunities evolve, and what's the goal for us long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we continue to expand our partnerships with a number of global research communities, which is really exciting. seeing really exciting research come in from new communities, new organizations, new researchers that have historically not had access to microgravity, and now we can provide that. But as I said, we're also very interested in opening up these new commercial economic opportunities to do things in space that can create materials or biomedical products that can benefit life here on Earth. Because that's ultimately what we want to do at Axiom, is everything we do in space, we want to be benefiting every human everywhere, which includes not just the astronauts, but all of us back down here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for all your time. We're going to be talking to you during the mission as well to find out a little bit more about what's been transpiring up in space, what we expect to see down here, and so much more will come our way. Thank you so much, Lucy, for your time.
Thank you, Sonia.
Well, that is amazing groundbreaking work that we're going to be seeing, the additional insights of these studies, and so much. You can follow the efforts as they play out on orbit. Just visit us at axiomspace.com/AX2research. We're going to send you back now to Hawthorne, to Duke and Kate. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Well, switching gears a bit, Axiom Space is also working to create partnerships with companies that you wouldn't typically expect to hear about going to space. Some of those companies end up with some representation on board a mission as well.
Besides the crew, the Dragon is also carrying hundreds of kilograms of supplies and resources for the mission. Most of these materials are essential as supplies, but every mission has a few fun surprises. One of those that's often discussed is the highly anticipated microgravity indicator. This is actually the only item inside Dragon that isn't secured at launch. Once the crew successfully reach orbit, the microgravity indicator will begin to float, allowing all of us to visually see what we've completed during the launch phase of the mission.
And to reveal the indicator, a fifth crew member named Gigi here is a very special greeting from Sharon, John, and a few of the younger Axiom family members who helped prepare the indicator for this flight.
Hi, it's Sharon John, Build-A-Bear CEO and President. We're incredibly thrilled to be a part of the AX2 mission to space. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. We also wanted to be sure and wish good luck to all of the brave, wonderful crew members that are headed off to space, and hope that an extra fifth furry crew member brings you luck. With that in mind, we wanted to also send you off with a very special heart ceremony. As some of you may know, we have heart ceremonies at Build-A-Bear workshops, but we've created a really special one for today.
So what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna do a special heart ceremony. So what you're gonna do is you guys are gonna warm up your hearts like this, or rub them to get them nice and warm. Then you guys are gonna pat those hearts to get them started. Pat, pat, pat.
Rub it on your hands so they can steer the spaceship and stay on course.
Then you guys are gonna rub it on your ears so they can hear mission control loud and clear.
And rub it on your eyes so they have the best view of Earth. So let's have a safe and successful mission. Let's put the heart in our hands, hold it really tight, close your eyes and make a great big wish for them.
Then you guys are gonna give it a really big kiss. Mwah! Good job, guys.
It's overflowing. Lots of love.
Let's see it. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be thinking about all these hearts when we get to space and our little bear's floating, okay?
Wow, that was unbearably cute, if I do say so myself. We actually have a replica of the microgravity indicator on board with us here. This is a special edition Axiom Space Build-A-Bear, just like the one you saw in the video. Gigi is wearing the AX-EMU spacesuit that NASA's next generation of moonwalkers will use during the Artemis 3 mission, which will land the next humans on the moon in 2025. Using innovative technologies and a flexible design, these spacesuits will enable more exploration of the lunar surface than ever before. Speaking of Artemis 3 and these lunar missions, SpaceX is playing a significant role in that mission as well.
That's right. We are incredibly honored to be a part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon with our new Starship vehicle prior to the Artemis 3 mission, marking humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. Starship's early flight tests, followed by regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are also directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
A big thanks to Sharon John and Build-A-Bear for their support in our mission. We're all really excited to see Gigi floating around inside the Dragon in the next couple hours. To learn more about Gigi and all the exciting efforts on this mission, visit axiomspace.com.
We're just over 90 minutes away as the Axiom-2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Right now, quick status update. The crew's inside the capsule. The side hatch is closed as of about 30 minutes ago. Leak checks are complete. We've also had completion of comm checks between both Dragon and Falcon ground teams with the crew. Looking at weather right now, the weather continues to be good for launch and any contingencies if needed. Local pad weather continues to be that 25% probability of violation. We'll just watch over the last hour and a half if we get any clouds drifting over from inland. Conditions in the Atlantic are also good should we need a contingency landing somewhere along the eastern seaboard. Falcon 9 team will begin bleed in at T-minus 1 hour and 10-minute mark of the Merlin engines. And the latest update we've heard from the SpaceX team out at 39A, the support crew is leaving the crew access arm. With the hatch closed, all their work is finished. So right now, everything is on schedule at T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds.
And with our crew safely inside Dragon Freedom and continuing their preparation for launch, let's head back over to Sonia Gavankar-McKay at Kennedy Space Center for a conversation with a member of the Saudi Space Commission. Sonia, this is an exciting moment for many around the world, but what does this mission mean for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
That's a great question, Duke. Our work with KSA and any partner begins just years before the launch date. We started talking with KSA about 4 years ago, and like any commercial partnership, there are a lot of details to work out, and that's especially true with the U.S. commercial company signing with a direct agreement with a foreign nation. Once you get through the negotiation process and get to the actual signing of contracts, which took place in 2022, then you have to get to work planning, preparing, training for the mission. Not only are these partnerships beneficial for Axiom Space and our goals of building history and expanding access to low Earth orbit, but we're enabling nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, organizations and individuals to achieve their goals in space. Joining me now from the Saudi Space Commission to share how this mission and our partnerships are so critical to their ambitions beyond Earth. We are joined now with just the perfect person to talk to. Thanks so much for joining me here today, Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the ambitions of the kingdom. What brought you to this moment?
Of course, I would say, on the personal side, I'm space enthusiast, and I know there are so many space enthusiasts there in Saudi, and we're so excited to be here. And this is the first mission of the Saudi Astronaut Corps, and this program started to begin, and it will be a sustainable program.
Right. But why now? Why take this big leap right now?
Well, there's always a right time for something. This is a huge thing. Space is becoming more evolved now, and this is the right time for space. And we see so many nations are joining the space race, and Saudi has been there 38 years ago, actually, with Prince Sultan being the first Arab and first Muslim to go to space, and we're continuing this work in going with the first female Saudi and Muslim astronaut.
It's such a momentous moment. We talked about the first steps. We talked about the evolution. Long term, what are the goals for SSC?
So the national space strategy aims to have the kingdom to be a key player in the space sector. Right. This is just the beginning. This is just a first program, and this only looks at the sector of the human space flight, and we see this mission as a stepping stone that will continue to take presence in space.
And what does the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have that's unique that you bring to the table?
I think you could know, Rihanna's for today, she's unique, becoming the first Muslim and Arab to go to the ISS, and also first. It's actually going to be the 6th country to have two from the same national astronauts in the station.
So this is, like we said, the first step. It's an exciting step. How do you feel right now?
Oh, my feeling. I can't really explain my feeling. I don't think that I have enough words to express my feeling. We're looking at the countdown. We're so excited. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We're so excited. We're so happy. We're tuning in to watch the launch. We can't wait to see them in orbit.
And you've spent a lot of time in Houston with us, right? Through all of the training, you've been there. You've kind of been training with these astronauts in the same way. Do you feel like you're part of the crew, or do you feel like a support system?
You know, to be honest, I wanted to be in the cargo, actually.
You're going to be a stowaway?
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to go with them. I feel like I am with them in the journey. I enjoyed like every moment. This is the most exciting moment, of course. I can't wait to see them in orbit, and I can't wait to see them back again. And I'm going to feel like I'm in space with them, but without the zero gravity, of course.
That's right. Well, it's been a pleasure to work with you and your entire team. I know that your entire Kingdom of Saudi Arabia feels like you're going along with this mission. As everybody looks upward to the skies for this mission, you do feel like you're part of the crew going along. So thank you for being such a wonderful partner with us. And we want to all stow away too. So we'll figure out a way for maybe the next time we go on another mission together.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be ready.
You'll be
I am
ready.
trained and ready.
You are. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Thank you.
This is an exciting time for so much of us here. We're so grateful for this partnership and so many things that we're going to achieve today together. Naturally, today we are focused on the launch of AX-2 and the mission, celebrating the beginning of their 8-day mission. But it is interesting on how much of this mission serves its own chapter in the development of expanding opportunities in low Earth orbit. This crew is benefiting from prior missions, including AX-1, as a way of passing the baton to this crew here and marking it as that special moment. Here are just a few words from Michael Lopez Alegria, Larry Connor, Mark Pathy, and Itan Stebe of the crew of AX-1. Take a look.
Dear Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, together with you, the whole IKEA team are counting down the days, the hours, the seconds towards your launch. The excitement is building as you are leading the way for more diverse explorers in space. May this journey inspire your families and people. As Sophocles said, numberless are the world wonders, but none more wonderful than man. The impact of your mission will cross borders and contribute to a much better world because there is no dream beyond reach. Good luck. Godspeed, AX-2.
Hi, this is Mark Pathy, mission specialist from AX-1, and I'm sending out my warmest greetings to the crew of AX-2 as you count down the final days before your big launch. Peggy and John, I'm super excited for both of you. I know you've been waiting a while for this and maybe a little bit jealous too. But I hope you have a great mission. And Ali and Rayana, although we haven't met, I've heard that you guys are a great addition to the team. Please take good care of my friends up there and look forward to seeing all of you on the other side. Godspeed, AX-2.
I am honored to have the opportunity to speak to all of you, the crew of AX-2. You are about to embark on an extraordinary experience. I wish I could join you. I know it's been a great deal of work and effort, but you shall be rewarded. Good luck and Godspeed.
John, Ali, Ray, and of course, dear Peg. You guys must be getting very excited. It's getting real. By now, you're either already or about to be strapped in, comm checks, probably a little chit chat with each other, but most of all, the excitement is building. And I just want to give you a little preview that when the number of digits on the clock goes from 4 down to 3, so 10:00 to 9:59, starts to get pretty real. When it goes from 3 down to 2, 1:00 to 59 seconds, even more so. And you can imagine when it gets below 10 seconds what it's going to feel like. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the sensation of floating, definitely enjoy the view. And from the crew of AX-1, we wish the 4 of you Godspeed.
It's absolutely incredible to be part of this rapidly growing effort and industry. Every mission points to the next, and I hope you feel the energy and anticipation like we can here on the Space Coast. Duke, Kate, this really never gets old. I say that this is my first time at a launch. What's the energy like out at Mission Control at SpaceX?
It's absolutely incredible, and I think you're right. It will never get old. This is just really a fantastic day for AX2, and how great to hear that message from AX1 as words of encouragement. Well, as we've mentioned, this is a privately funded mission, and so what that means is that the origins and primary funding for this mission are coming from places other than national space agencies. So it's not a government-driven effort, which is unique. Axiom Space is pioneering partnerships between us, a commercial entity, directly with nations other than the United States, which may sound like a simple thing, but these kinds of partnerships, especially for the purpose of space exploration, are really covering new ground. We are so proud to be partnering with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for this mission, and while we view this relationship with them as a partnership, they are also our customer. NASA is another customer in this process. They'll actually be paying for some of Commander Peggy Whitson's time while she's on board station to conduct specific science that's of importance to them. So we're very proud to help meet the high demand for science and research in space, while pioneering the expansion of commercial spaceflight.
In addition to the first of their kind partnerships that Duke just mentioned, we also have a strong and growing partnership, SpaceX and Axiom Space. In the spaceflight business, a purely commercial entity paying another purely commercial entity to fly humans to space has been mostly unheard of, but our hope is that it will become more and more common. SpaceX is proud to continue growing our partnerships with Axiom Space, NASA, and other commercial companies who can put our services to good use for the benefit of humanity.
For the AX1 mission, we introduced a series of digital collectibles, and the response to those were really outstanding. So for this mission, Axiom Space will continue to push the boundaries of Web3 by partnering with several well-known digital artists and brands to celebrate the continued growth of the commercial space environment. Axiom Space 3 is our program that combines the promise of space exploration with the power of Web3 blockchain technology. This is a token-gated community network which allows members to engage with astronauts, space technology professionals, and Web3 entrepreneurs. For this mission, we'll kick things off by launching a brand new digital art collection by Art Blocks artist Nadia Bremer, an astronomer, data visualization designer, and artist. This new Art Blocks collection will feature a 484-piece algorithmically generated collection that showcases imaginary maps of the stars with unique constellations. To make this collection even more unique, the digital art will actually be initiated from on board the ISS by AX2 Commander Peggy Whitson. Additionally, the AX2 digital art collection will feature works by Thank You X, an American artist out of Los Angeles, California. Thank You X is sending up a piece of his physical art canvas to space, titled Urge for Perfection. He will also be releasing a commemorative NFT, which will celebrate this mission and the canvas going to space. This NFT will be available for purchase right at launch, and the sale will close by splashdown. These collaborations with digital artists and brands bring a new level of creativity and inclusivity to commercial space industries like ours. For more on this and all of our digital collectible activities, visit nft.axiomspace.com. There you can also find more instructions on how to get involved and buy your boarding pass to participate in all of the AX2 activities. Well, the most visible part of Axiom's work today is these missions to the International Space Station. These are just the leading edge of one aspect to the preparation for our real goal: operating a completely commercial space station and laboratory in low Earth orbit. These missions serve as an opportunity to learn and prepare for how to handle logistics, maintenance, schedules, routines, crew volume, and every other aspect of space missions. The roadmap that Axiom Space has created points to some major milestones to evolve our presence in space. They include deploying our own habitation modules and docking them to the front of the International Space Station, deploying our own solar panel and Earth observatory elements, overseeing long-duration space flights of 6 months or more that lead to a permanent presence of commercial activities off-planet, developing spacesuits and other necessary technology to live and work in space, and eventually breaking away from the International Space Station to be 100% independent as a commercial space station. While the launch of the first ever commercial space station module is still a couple of years from launch, the process of designing and now manufacturing have been underway since 2015. Here is a bit more
Dragon
on the
SpaceX
current
for
status.
Falcon 9 status update.
Go for Falcon 9 status.
The F9 team is going to take the action to vent the manifold for the pre-briefed Falcon 9 status. This will be a loud venting, so we do expect that you will hear it in the vehicle. They'll be taking that commanding shortly, but just giving you a heads up, you will hear this venting.
Okay, copy. Venting the manifold, and we expect to hear it. Thanks.
All right, so that was SpaceX core Arthur, and that was SpaceX core Arthur Berriault, just letting the crew know to expect loud venting noise. Again, that is the primary voice of communication to the crew to update them on status, as well as items like this where they can expect to hear something.
Good heads up for the crew there. So, talking about Axiom Space Station, here's a bit more on the current status, currently under construction.
We are building the world's first commercial space station, one element at a time. We think that what we're doing is for everyone, everywhere. This is a global endeavor. Our partner, Thales Alenia in Italy, is in the finishing stages of building the first module, the first pressure vessel.
We are here in the integration and manufacturing area of Thales Alenia Space. Here we have the two cones that will be part of the module. Is also the gate to the module to come in and to come out. The very big cylinder that will be the core of the module. Just to have an idea of the dimension of the real module, you can see me compared with the structure. On these ports, all the additional modules will be docked. This is the most complex piece of the entire Axiom module.
We're on pace to build a human-rated spaceship faster than anybody's ever built one. When we look at our roadmap, we look to see how we can double its capability every 5 years. It requires a lot of different talents and a lot of different engineering backgrounds, so we've really expanded the team.
I'm working on the time-sensitive network aspect of the space station. So that's the network, have all the flight computers synchronized and actually do the thruster firing at the perfect time.
So this is the command trailer. We're able to control our test stand, which enables us to vary our set pressures, our flow rates into the thruster in order to collect performance data at various OFs and chamber pressure conditions. It's always a blast to come out here, set everything up, and start lighting rockets off.
Behind us, we have the carbon dioxide removal subassembly. We're going to be creating the most integrated ecosystem that has ever been put into space thus far, which is a really cool thing to be able to say.
I fabricate PC boards and cables and harnessing. This is a life-critical job, and you want to make sure you do the best possible job.
"15 to 20 years from now, we're going to be surrounded by objects that we can't imagine how we live without, that were manufactured in space." I think there's another promise too, and that's why I'm really excited about the AX-2 crew. There is this effect that people have gone to space and had. This is called the overview effect. Many people have come back profoundly changed because of their experience. And I think the more people that we can have that see the world as the whole world, the better off we all are.
Incredible to see how much these missions are able to impact the future of Axiom Station and private astronaut missions. And there's so much more underway that we can't show you just yet, but circling back to the here and now, it's missions like today's that pave the way that's right around the corner. While AX2 will spend less than 2 weeks in space, the value it adds to our discovery and planning process feels like it's years of experience. We're excited for these short duration missions and even more excited to be able to get into long duration missions as we begin to bring Axiom Station online. But before we get there, we still have at least 2 more flights to go, AX3 and AX4. We aren't quite ready yet to talk about the details of dates and crew members, but in the same way we're launching KSA astronauts today, we have also signed agreements with the nations of Turkey to fly some of their national astronauts and other nations. And as it was previously announced, we will be flying a member of the Italian Air Force on an upcoming mission as well. Between these new sovereign nations and the private citizens who now have a way to partake in the marvel of living and working in space, we are truly working to expand access to low Earth orbit for all. And that's not even counting the opportunities to help NASA, ESA, and JAXA find ways to expand their efforts in low Earth orbit.
It's all super exciting news and progress for the future of human spaceflight. We're really looking forward to successful completion of this mission as well as the 2 that are yet to come. Now at the moment, let's check in with John I for another status update.
Just over 70 minutes away as the Axiom-2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You've got a view right now of the crew access arm. The seals along Dragon have actually been deflated. You can see a little bit of a gap between the capsule and the arm. The SpaceX team has left the tower. They're getting out of the hazard area. So everything continues to go on time as we've got the crew in the capsule with all activities complete to date. Currently, weather, you can see the blue skies in the area, some clouds around there. We haven't had any updates that indicate things are better or worse than when we started the webcast. We're still at about a 25% probability of violation, but everything continues to look good. We do watch the upper altitude clouds as we get later and later into the afternoon. It's at the higher altitudes where the wind actually could carry some anvil clouds back over the pad in the ascent corridor. In that case, we've got to worry about things like lightning. But right now, the flight path downrange continues to be good for launch. But we're going to have to watch that until we get all the way down to T0. Now, as you can see, it's still daylight, obviously, at Kennedy Space Center. Folks in the local area are going to have a good view. But unlike a night launch where people all up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States can see the vehicle, you're going to have to be in the local area to watch Falcon 9 with Dragon take off. The view you see right now is looking down from on top of the service structure at the top of the crew access arm, the Dragon capsule with the solar rays. And then below that is the Falcon 9, and you can see just a little bit of the transporter erector. The arms actually that will open up around the second stage as we get down into the last 4 minutes of the countdown. Another view, Falcon 9 with Dragon on pad 39A. We've been listening in the Falcon 9 team, the Dragon team. They are on schedule, reporting no significant issues. Everything continuing to look good. Now, one update that'll be a little different on this flight. The first stage will be coming back to what we call a land landing or return to launch site. And so we'll continue to cover that as the second stage with Dragon heads into orbit. One difference you're going to see this time is given the trajectory of Falcon 9 when we carry astronauts to space, we can come back now to the landing site just down from Kennedy Space Center. But what that means is we're going to have a slightly different sequence of burns. We'll do the boost back burn with 3 engines as is traditional coming back to land. The entry burn as we get to the atmosphere fringe, that's a single engine, and it's a fairly short burn. We don't have to slow down much. But when we land, we're going to light 3 engines. Now, right now, T-minus 1 hour, 7 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Everything is go for an on-time launch.
A big thanks to all of you tuning in now as we welcome NASA and their coverage of the second Axiom mission, AX-2. You're joining us here with live views from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Specifically, this is the iconic Launch Complex 39A with a Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft that are in the final stages of preparation, leading to launch in just over an hour from now. As the name suggests, this is the second flight for Axiom Space with a handful of noteworthy firsts. This 10-day mission will see the first female commander of a private space mission, legend and former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Our pilot, John Schaffner, will soon become the first Alaskan astronaut. And 2 national astronauts will be the first from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to fly to the International Space Station, Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi. Taken together as a crew, this is the first private mission with private astronauts and astronauts representing non-US nations through direct commercial arrangements. And that's just to name a few. My name is Duke Brady, and I'm a multimedia specialist at Axiom Space, based out of Houston, Texas.
And I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. And as Duke just mentioned, our coverage has now expanded to NASA television, and we would like to welcome NASA's Leah Cheshire from Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Kate, great to see you and Duke, and I'm excited to join as we get closer to launch, so thank you so much for having me. I am here in Mission Control Houston, where the Orbit 3 team is coming on and taking over from the Orbit 2 shift. These teams are monitoring the station and its crew 24/7. And of course, in here today, we'll be watching the launch with the International Space Station flying 260 miles over the southwest coast of Ireland at the time of liftoff. But we've still got some counting down to do before then, so back to you guys at SpaceX.
Thanks, Leah. Now, liftoff time is still holding for 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, and the weather is cooperating, as we saw earlier. Really picture-perfect views coming to us from Kennedy Space Center, as you can see there. Now, over the last 3 hours, Axiom astronauts Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Al-Karni, and Rayana Barnawi donned their SpaceX suits in our suit-up room and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft that you see there live on your screen.
And since arriving at that spacecraft, our crew were helped by the closeout engineers to get into their seats, attach their suits to special umbilicals that provide breathing air and communication links to Dragon's systems. They conducted successful leak checks and communications checks with the core here in Hawthorne, which is the person dedicated to speaking directly to the crew throughout the mission.
The closeout team sealed the hatch, which also got its own leak check, and they have departed the pad. Coming up, weather operators kick off their final check on wind speeds at the pad before the final go, no-go for launch. Now, before we get to that final go, no-go, the SpaceX team will do an internal poll, making sure conditions are steady with Falcon 9, Dragon, the crew, the range, and weather.
A lot of things needing to line up there.
Absolutely. Now, as the countdown continues, we are now approaching T-minus 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 15 seconds. Let's take a moment to get reacquainted with our crew today.
The AX-2 mission commander is Axiom Space's Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During her career with NASA, Peggy flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space, 665 days, than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours to her credit.
Dragon SpaceX cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Dragon copy.
And that was the voice of Peggy Whitson, who also performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. Sounds like a busy guy. John trained as the AX-1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators.
And representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Having flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years, Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Reengineering Program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center.
You've seen the vehicle, you've met the crew. Let's send you over now to NASA's Johnson Space Center, where Leah Cheshire is following the launch preparations from Mission Control in Houston. Leah?
Thanks, Duke. You're right. I'm here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at Johnson, where teams staff this room around the clock to monitor the crew and the systems aboard the orbiting laboratory. Today, they're ensuring that the station is ready to receive Dragon and the AX-2 crew. Since NASA opened up the space station for commercial activity in 2019, the agency has continued to work with private industry to prepare for the future of low Earth orbit. NASA's long-term goal is to no longer be the provider of a low Earth orbit destination, but to be a customer, one of many, purchasing commercially owned and operated services. To ensure the path of tomorrow, we have to work together today. Enabling private astronaut missions on board the space station helps us to refine and mature the processes needed for the future, with NASA astronauts working side by side with private and national astronauts in a new age of science and discovery. And we take this next step together as we continue counting down to the AX-2 crew launch to the International Space Station. As you can see, it's an incredibly busy time in low Earth orbit and beyond. And with that, let's connect with NASA Public Affairs Officer Megan Cruz at Kennedy Space Center.
You know, Leo, we love our launch days here at Kennedy Space Center, and we love it when we can witness them with NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Administrator, great to have you here.
It's always a pleasure.
So as Leah said, it's been a busy, exciting 3 years here at Kennedy. Since 2020, we've launched 7 crewed missions to the ISS, but we've also paved the way for private missions like Axiom-1 last year and today AX-2. So I want to ask you, how are NASA and the general public benefiting from these private missions?
Well, we go in a public-private partnership, and we go with a fixed-price contract. And because it's a public-private partnership, the private partner is putting skin in the game, or in other words, investing, so that at the end of the day, the cost to the federal government is less. And that's the way we're going back to the moon and then on to Mars. And we do it also differently, is we're going on an international mission. And so, as we have announced, the first crew to go back to the moon in a half century, it has a Canadian astronaut that's part of the crew.
Mm-hmm. And I think also what's great is that we're opening up low Earth orbit to new partners, as you were saying. So, you know, we we will continue to use the space station through 2030, and then after that, the agency will transition to, as you know, commercially owned stations. So, how is that transition going? What's the latest on that?
Well, the goal is we want to bring space business off of the Earth up into low Earth orbit, and to do that, we, NASA, want to concentrate our efforts going on further into the cosmos. And so we want to bring in our public-private partnership to encourage them to do low Earth orbit. And therefore, when we're through with the space station in 2030, and it will be pretty old by that time, it's time to move on to commercial space stations. We can still, what we, NASA, need to do in low Earth orbit by utilizing the commercial stations. And we've given seed money to 4 companies to build commercial space stations in low Earth orbit.
Mm-hmm. And one of those is Axiom Space.
And Axiom is going to start their venture, by the way, not only of getting accustomed to taking private astronauts into space as this mission is It also is helping us with our international partnerships because we have 2 Saudis on this trip. But it also will have its first component of its space station, and it's going to dock to the International Space Station.
So a lot of exciting things, as we keep saying, in the years ahead. So I do want to talk to you about, you've been alluding to the Artemis program, the fact that working with these commercial companies to continue access to low Earth orbit, it allows us to think farther. So yeah, talk to us about some of the international partnerships that, that are helping the Artemis program.
Well, we have some 15 partners that have, if not built, are certainly participating in the International Space Station. And this, of course, is a huge structure, 120 yards long. You think from one goalpost to the other goalpost in a football stadium. That's how big it is. They are very much you're seeing the results of that public-private partnership here. Another example is look at the phenomenal success of SpaceX as a means of getting to and from the space station. So when we shut down the space shuttle a dozen years ago, now we rely on a private company to go to the International Space Station. In this case, it's SpaceX. In July, it will be Boeing as well.
Any words to the AX-2 crew today?
Well, first of all, I wish I were with you. And secondly, Godspeed to all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Administrator, and I hope you enjoyed today's launch.
Thanks.
And so, again, we were talking a little bit about the Artemis program. Did you know that NASA and Axiom Space are also working together to design the suits our astronauts will wear when they land on the moon in the next few years? Here's a sneak peek at what those suits will look like. This is a prototype of what astronauts will wear when they land on the moon for Artemis 3. While this prototype is black with blue and orange detailing, the real moonwalking suits will be white to reflect heat and keep astronauts safe from extreme temperatures. NASA selected Axiom Space to design, develop, and certify the suits. They will fit a broad range of crew members, men and women, accommodating at least 90% of the U.S. population.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The moon suits worn by Apollo 11 astronauts in 1969 had a bulky life support system. The new Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Units, or Axiom-U's, will have range of motion and flexibility needed to explore the lunar South Pole. They will give astronauts the capability to access, live, and work on the moon. Future versions could even have avionics. Astronauts will start training with the spacesuits later this year. That's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute.
While the International Space Station has been a valuable asset for space research and exploration, the rise of commercial spaceflight is opening new doors. Those benefiting from the new opportunities range from small commercial entities all the way to national space agencies. This expansion of participation in space is enabling a more diverse and inclusive space industry with a much wider range of perspectives, ideas, and expertise. Additionally, the competitive nature of commercial activities means the cost of participating is falling, and there are more participants to share those costs and the risks. Expanding access to space also promotes innovation and scientific and technological progress, benefiting humanity as a whole. For a long time, the conversation has been about someday having private space flights, and someday we'll have private astronauts. And while there's a lot of room to grow from that someday is now. Low Earth orbit is more accessible than ever before as space research and technology enter a new era. Companies like Axiom Space are expanding this access, and young space agencies like the Saudi Space Commission now have a path to achieve their goals in low Earth orbit. At Kennedy Space Center is Axiom Space's Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay, and with her is a member of the Saudi Space Commission to talk about their goals for this mission. Sonia?
Thanks so much, Duke. As you mentioned, I'm joined by Ahmed Al-Ghafali of the Saudi Space Commission, but also Axiom Space's Chief Revenue Officer, Tejpal Bhatia. And I'm going to jump right in here because we're so close to launch time. This is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's second flight into space. The first was in 1985 on the STS-51G. What does this mission mean for the nation and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
I believe that the kingdom has gone a long way since 1985. So many satellites have been launched ever since. So many payloads have been developed ever since. A lot of research were conducted related to space, payloads, conducts, a lot of components that we've done that could be used for space and other sectors. So that's a long way since that time. And here we are today, just an hour away from this historical mission that will carry 2 Saudi astronauts for the first time to the International Space Station. However, I do believe that it's not only Saudi that has gone a long way. I looked at so many research and so many financial forecasts that suggest that within the past 20 years, 60% of the investment in space only happened within the past 2 or 3 years. So there is a momentum, and we want to be a part of it.
That's wonderful. Tejpal, your efforts with KSA and the efforts that Axiom Space puts into this mission allow for a vision for so much in low Earth orbit. What can Axiom Space really do to help nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and so many others achieve their goals?
Thanks, Sonia. When I think about what we're doing with the Kingdom, from the first time I met Ahmed, my definition of the word partner has fundamentally changed and evolved. From when this was an idea and started formulating as a mission to execution, we had to overcome a lot of challenges, and these are things that are being done for the first time in human history. And what I've seen in our relationship is that definition of partnership to overcome those problems and make these things a reality are enormous. And what is happening in this situation is, while we are enabling the Kingdom to get to the International Space Station, the Kingdom is enabling us to see our vision of providing access to all nations in the world and increasing the cadence of astronauts from every nation to go up into low Earth orbit.
That's wonderful. This astronaut program is new for the Kingdom. How has this process evolved through this year? Are you seeing that it's exponentially growing like the infrastructure is?
Of course. I mean, when we started this program about a year ago with this collaboration with Axiom, the first thing that we started is for the process of the selection, which is one of the main and major milestones to achieve any successful program like that. So we built our program for a selection based on the best practices that we developed together, based on the benchmarks from NASA, for instance. However, that's only a part of it. Then comes to, if you want to build a program, you want to make sure that all the enablers are in place, especially when it comes to the infrastructure, and also for the right people with the right competencies to be able to run such a complex program. So we've been building for the past year, utilizing this project as a vehicle to train, to get those people with the right competencies, not only to do the training for the astronaut corps, but also you want to, even for the media, for the finance, for the legal, for the R&D, for the integration. All of it is a part of this secret recipe to get a successful program. And this is only the start, so we're going to keep building and enhancing this program till we get to the point that is optimum.
Excellent. Tejpal, as we have only about 1 minute left, what's it like working with individuals versus nations? What's the difference in that relationship like for Axiom Space?
Yeah, so, trying to compare a private astronaut with a national astronaut is like asking me to compare my children. Luckily, I only have one child, so I'm prepared to do this. Let's start with what's the same. Each of these individuals on this mission right now are pioneers. Very few people in human history have been to the International Space Station. Today, we're going to see 3 more join. And each individual represents their country and humanity, and they're going to inspire girls and boys all over the world today and moving forward. The big difference is with the Kingdom seeing this more as a program.
Right.
When we were inspired as kids, I'll speak about myself, coming here with my parents or seeing the shuttle program, it was a long time before it became a reality. Right. And what we're going to see with the Kingdom is this happening more and more as we go forward.
And as they say, the sky is the limit for this partnerships, the opportunities for nations, individuals to grow together. Thank you to both of you for joining me. And we're getting so close to launch, so I'll let you get back to it as we toss it back to Hawthorne, where I'm sure you're feeling the anticipation. It's getting so exciting out there. What does it feel like to you? And I know John I is out there as well.
Well, thank you, Sonia. And yes, it's a time where the energy is increasing, especially we're inside of 47 minutes to launch. Currently, the SpaceX launch director is checking with the Dragon mission director, make sure that the Dragon ground team is ready to begin propellant loading in just over 10 minutes from now. The SpaceX launch director is also electronically polling the 7 members of the SpaceX launch team for their go to load propellant and launch. Now, once we get that go, when we get green lights across the board here on the procedure, the launch director will then come back and make a series of announcements. They'll talk about the control room, what to do during the countdown, as well as protocols for hold and launch escape. Coming up on 46 minutes, they're continuing to get the goes from the team electronically. We're waiting to hear the launch director give those instructions. That ought to come within the next minute. Now, once we get through the instructions, that will give the clearance to retract the crew access arm. That will then set up for arming of the launch escape system, and that will take us into propellant load itself. That'll begin at T-minus 35 minutes. You can see on the monitor the crew on the right-hand side. They're getting ready for their final directions here. On the left side, we've got the Dragon capsule, the crew access arm.
Countdown polls complete, and the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant load, and launch. Reminder for control room lockdown for all operators in Mission Control and Firing Room 4. Both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes, which is now, and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbital insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. Reminder on hold and launch escape protocol. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief CE or LD, they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold, hold, hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort launch immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Finally, operators shall advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring for Dragon manual escape flight rules. Finally, regarding leak-through on the first stage ACS isolation valve, we will manually monitor the pressure in the manifold. Stage 1 will assess and at T-minus 35 seconds indicate whether the pressure rise is within the predicted range. If it is not, Stage 1 will call a hold on the countdown net. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
We're go to proceed with
Crew
propellant
access
load.
arm retraction has
And
started.
the crew access arm, Kate, it's going to begin retracting. We're getting into that next dynamic phase where a lot of events start happening over the next 10 minutes. Now, while we wait for the arm to begin moving, currently Falcon 9 Dragon continue to be go. Obviously, we've completed the poll. The range continues to be go for launch. They're monitoring clearance area around the pad. And there goes the arm beginning to move, the view from on top of the fixed service structure. And the weather continues to be acceptable for launch as we get ever closer. Nice view from the camera inside the White Room as the arm moves away from Dragon.
The clock continues to tick down. We're now at T-minus 42 minutes mark on the dot.
Crew axis arm retraction is complete.
As you just heard there, that crew axis arm is now completely stowed. It is now in the launch position, of course necessary in order to clear the way for Falcon 9 to lift off. Now, next up, we'll hear the call out that the launch escape system is going to be armed, and from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 propellant load will also begin.
Dragon, SpaceX, you are go for Section 6. Close visors and arm launch escape system.
Copy. Go for Section 6.
We saw our AX-2 crew members exit the brand new suit-up room located in the Falcon support building just about 3 hours ago. They also got their tablets.
And SpaceX Dragon. Visors are closed, and we're arming the launch escape system now.
Those tablets provide them with all the information they'll need for the mission. You see them attached to their left legs. Shortly after that point, the crew took one last ride in the Teslas to launch pad 39A, ascended the fixed service structure, signed the white wall, and ingressed into Dragon. After getting buckled in, the spacecraft hatch was closed, and the closeout technicians cleared the pad, leaving just the crew members inside the Dragon vehicle.
All right, so as we heard the call out, we are arming the launch escape system, which is a system that basically gives the crew options, a pathway to safety through all phases to orbit. You know, we take every
system is verified armed.
We take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options. Safety is paramount. So there we just got that confirmation that that launch escape system is now armed. So let's take a look at the teams that are actually working together to make sure this mission is a success. SpaceX is operating out of 2 control rooms today. There on your screen, a live view of our launch control in firing room 4 at Cape Canaveral. This team is responsible for monitoring Falcon 9 throughout the countdown and launch. Second, we have mission control here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. This team in mission control is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way as the spacecraft orbits the planet along its customized flight path. On console or headset, there are a number of key positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and crew. The mission director, that person is responsible for mission success, and they are in charge of the room. Today's mission director is Ken Gamerick. Other positions are focused on things like software, propulsion, navigation, avionics, life support systems, and communications with ground segments, as we've heard those kind of called out throughout the day so far. You'll also hear a specific person dedicated to communicating with the AX-2 crew. They are the Crew Operations Responsible Engineer, or CORE, C-O-R-E. Today's SpaceX CORE is Arthur Berrialt. We've heard him a number of times through the launch countdown. The SpaceX team members will also rotate and hand off coverage to ensure that we have people on console 24/7 for the crew and Dragon for the entire duration of the mission, including all the way through splashdown.
And for Axiom Space, the teams in Houston are utilizing Axiom Mission Control Center, an officially certified control center. From this secure facility, teams have live access to voice, video, and data from the ISS and can work alongside their NASA counterparts to run on-orbit operations and monitor every aspect of the mission in real time. This room is led by what we call the Axle, or the Axiom Operations Lead. And around the room are positions for officers responsible for research, communications, medical, integration and stowage, and timeline operations. This is a significant step in our journey to expand access to low Earth orbit, as it is only the 12th ground segment partner for the ISS program. And through this facility, we are enabling our customers and the global community a front row seat to the work being done on station. We are now T-minus 37 minutes and 31 seconds from the second all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, and the first for any representatives from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Falcon 9 propellant loading began at T-minus 35 minutes. RP-1 fuel loading is underway on both S1 and S2. And LOX loading is underway on
Falcon 9 tanks
S1.
will be venting for propellant load. Expect loud venting.
With propellant load, let's go check in with John I.
John Innsbrucker here from the webcast desk in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX headquarters. Inside 37 minutes, counting down, we have completed the go-no-go poll for propellant load and for launch. We've just heard a call out. They are now venting down the tanks. That's one of the steps in propellant load. The next major activity will occur at T-minus 35 minutes when propellant loading will physically begin onto the vehicle. Now we'll start with RP1 kerosene fuel loading onto both the first and second stages, and we'll be loading liquid oxygen onto the first stage of Falcon 9. Now, in order to fly, just like Falcon 9, Dragon needs its fuel and oxidizer. The Dragon capsule you can see here on the screen, it uses a monomethylhydrazine called MMH. That's the fuel that's on board the Dragon. And nitrogen tetroxide, or NTO, is the oxidizer. Together, these propellants feed the Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit, as well as the 8 Super Draco engines that would power the launch escape system in the case of an abort scenario. Now again, coming up in about 40 seconds, we will begin fueling on the Falcon 9. That means right now that those 8 Super Draco engines inside Crew Dragon are ready, if needed, to launch the capsule away from the Falcon 9 rocket in an instant, should there be any kind of an emergency associated with the rocket or the pad. But currently, 35 minutes, 18 seconds and counting, everything continues to look good on Falcon 9 and Dragon.
Thank you, John. On the AX-1 flight and during our launch broadcast for that mission, there was a special emphasis on the TRISH research effort, or the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. As the name suggests,
Propellant load has started.
Okay, it sounds like a propellant load has started. As for TRISH, as the name suggests, this is a broad effort aimed at ensuring we understand and are preparing for human health beyond our home planet. This is an effort that NASA astronauts and private astronauts can both participate in. Naturally, life just a few hundred miles above Earth poses some unique challenges that we're still unlocking the secrets to even after 60+ years of humans in space. Here is a bit more on the progress made during AX-1 and what's ahead for our participation in this critical research effort.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Fogarty and Dr. Urqueta from TRISH, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. Let's start with an easy question. What exactly is TRISH?
Yes, TRISH. TRISH is a consortium between Baylor College of Medicine, MIT, and Caltech. We are funded by NASA to relentlessly and innovatively solve the risks for human space exploration and use a variety of tools to get there, including commercial spaceflight.
What are the goals of the research being conducted for AX-2 through TRISH?
That is a great question. The research that we're conducting on AX-2 has been highly prioritized to solve the most important risks for human spaceflight as we are planning to go back to the moon and going to other planets. So all of these projects have been custom made and designed to be easy to collect, to take the least crew time, and to take the least mass, power, and volume. And an example is this kit that I have here. We provide one of these to each of the crew members, and it includes most of the hardware that they need to collect physiologic data, sensory motor, that is your balance, how it changes in space, some surveys, and also how the physiology changes in space. So all of these have been, again, customized for commercial spaceflight.
Talk to me about the framework for this research. How is this set up to enable new data for new flyers?
Yes, so the EXPAND program at TRISH has 2 main elements to its framework to accomplish the goals that were just set out by Dr. Urqueta. So we have essential measures, which have been harmonized with NASA's standard measures to make sure that we're collecting the same type of data on every crew member. So we can compare across people, across different missions to really maximize the value. And then we have exploratory studies as the second part of the framework. And this is where the known unknowns, the questions we have about spaceflight or the risks, have hypotheses generated, and we get to test them.
How does the research apply to those of us on Earth? I mean, some of us are maybe never going to be leaving this planet. Why do we care about this kind of work? Dr. Fogarty, Dr. Urqueta?
Yeah, this is where things get really exciting. So due to the constraints of spaceflight and the complexity, we have to be really focused on creating integrated and holistic solutions. We can't have individual solutions for every problem. Those constraints create a really ideal environment to bring things back to Earth, to put healthcare in people's hands. We believe that these are going to increase healthcare equity, the access to healthcare and the quality of healthcare, which then results in improved health outcomes.
How does this mission, AX2, add to the range of data?
That's a great question. In the last 61 plus years of human spaceflight, roughly only 650 people have flown into space. And if we look at the diversity of these, mostly are male, white males. And what we're seeing with commercial spaceflight is a more diverse population. We're seeing people from all ages, younger and older, as compared to your government astronauts. We're also seeing people from multiple demographics, backgrounds, training, education, and also people with medical conditions. So as we keep growing this database of civilians flying into space, we will have all of the tools that we need to make most humans being able to fly into space, stay for there longer, and enjoy the experience.
Thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to watching the launch with you and seeing the astronauts return and looking at their data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now just under 30 minutes from the launch of AX-2 mission. It has taken an enormous effort from an incredibly dedicated and hardworking team to get to this moment. Knowing that not everyone can be here to witness it, and even fewer get to share a message with the crew, we asked teams to record some words for this moment. As the countdown to launch continues, here are a few messages from those across the Axiom family.
Peggy, you are an inspiration to so many people around the world. To me, it's been so impactful to see a woman like yourself make such great strides in exploration and achieve so many different types of firsts. My family and I will be watching you launch and cheering you on all the way to the ISS.
Hi Peggy, Kelly and Delta here. We just wanted to let you know that we're cheering you on. We're so excited to watch you launch. You're an inspiration to women and girls around the world, and you've been a personal inspiration to me in my own journey to space. We're so excited to watch you launch, and we'll be cheering you on here on Earth.
Go Peggy, go AX2! Woo!
To Peggy, our notorious space ninja, John, aka Loki, to Ali, who's also known as Slayer, and then to Rihanna, our very own ray of sunshine. Wishing you an amazing launch today, as well as a smooth journey to the ISS. Ad Astra AX2 crew.
Thank you, Peggy, John, Ali, and Rihanna, for inspiring the next generation of astronauts.
From our crew experience team to our AX2 crew, we are so proud of everything you've accomplished, and we're excited for your successful journey home.
Send us a postcard.
Just wanted to say that we're super excited for all the groundbreaking researches you guys are going to do. We're rooting for you, and good luck.
The marketing team has been proud to support AX2 mission. Godspeed, AX2.
This is the Portable Life Support System team. We are very excited about the AX2 mission coming up and wish you all the best.
We're very excited for you guys. Y'all are such an inspiration, and we're rooting for you all the way through.
We wish you a safe and successful mission.
We want to congratulate the AX2 crew. Thank you so much for all of the inspiration, and we wish you the best on your journey.
AX2 crew, we're proud of you and good luck!
Hey AX2, all of us in avionics wish you safe travels and lots of fun. Godspeed.
This is the Environmental Controls and Life Support Systems team at Axiom Space. We're super excited about the AX2 mission and want to wish the best to the crew.
AX2 crew, we are so proud of you here at Axiom Space. This is the systems engineering team on the station program. Godspeed and Ad Astra on this groundbreaking mission.
From human resources to you,
go AX2!
We're sending all of our support to you guys from here in Axiom headquarters, and we just wanted to say congratulations on the AX2 mission.
Hey, this is Ryan Lee from the Pressure Garment team, wishing you on the AX2 flight all the best. Godspeed, guys. Go team! Go team, go team, go team, go!
Peggy, John, Ali, Rihanna, I look forward to seeing you flying in space and working aboard the International Space Station. I also wish you to enjoy your staying aboard for this another Making History mission. We are all proud of you, and we wait for you on the ground, and Godspeed.
A big thanks to all those who contributed to those videos and everyone behind the crew today. A lot of really excited teams out there. And a special thanks to Kelly Girardi and the Space Gal, Emily Calandrelli, both big STEAM education advocates who you just saw as well. They dedicate their influence to increasing literacy and interest in science, especially for young girls, which is awesome.
Yeah. You know, Emily and Kelly are both moms to young girls, so it's safe to say that they have front row seats to knowing what is cool and inspiring. Now, speaking of front row seats, it's been feeling like we have one of our very own looking at Pad 39A with these camera views that we've been getting all morning and afternoon. Now, let's take a moment to get acquainted with the vehicles that you see there on your screen. The Falcon 9 rocket with a Dragon spacecraft on top together stand at about 215 feet, which is almost 30 feet taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. Falcon 9 is a reusable two-stage rocket, which means it's kind of like two rockets in one, the first stage and the second stage. The first stage is the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle. Today's booster is flying for the first time. You can think of it as the large bottom white portion and the middle black portion. So that's what we mean when we say the booster. The first stage is responsible for accelerating Falcon and Dragon through the Earth's atmosphere and into space. In order to do that, it has 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the stage. Prior to liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage is...
Stage 2 cryohelium load has started.
Actually, and currently underway, is being loaded up with nearly 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. The Merlin engines on the first stage are optimized for sea level. They achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space and then separates from the rest of the rocket about 2.5 minutes into flight. From there, the first stage will head over to LZ-1. It will do what no other orbital class rocket in the world can do. It'll go right there, make its way back to Earth. Today marks the first time we are landing Falcon 9 on land for a crew mission. Previous crew missions landed on a drone ship stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. So pretty exciting first for us today. Landing back on land has a lot of benefits. For example, it eliminates the need for our recovery team to be stationed out at sea for days, and it improves our turnaround time to get Falcon 9 ready to fly again. Now, above the first stage is the second stage. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine, and that ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is essentially a smaller version of the first stage, whereas the first stage is designed to power the vehicle out of the Earth's atmosphere and through the forces of gravity. The second stage is specifically designed to operate in the vacuum of space. The second stage powers the Dragon spacecraft to its targeted drop-off orbit. The Dragon spacecraft itself is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit and beyond. But as we've been seeing with those views inside the capsule, today we're carrying 4 people. We have the 4 members of the Axiom-2 crew. It's the first private spacecraft to take humans to the space station and the only spacecraft currently flying that is capable of returning significant amounts of cargo to Earth. Like the Falcon 9 rocket, the Dragon spacecraft is also reusable. This will be the second flight for this particular Dragon spacecraft. This is Dragon Freedom that the AX-2 are flying in today. It previously supported NASA's Crew 4 mission in April 2022. Now, we are awaiting our T0 coming up in just over 23 minutes from now. The ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the ascent portion of the mission will look like.
Now, once we hit T0, we're going to watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic Pad 39A and make their ascent. Now, about 43 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, what we typically refer to as max Q. It's worth noting, once we hit max Q, we'll be going supersonic, faster than the speed of sound.
Dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines once again. From there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines will shut off in preparation for stage separation. where, as the name suggests, that's where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event.
That event is SES-1, the second stage engine start number 1. That's where the Merlin vacuum engine lights up and propels the second stage, along with our AX-2 crew and Dragon, into orbit.
As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 3 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the boost back burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite and then shut down. This helps to head the booster back to Cape Canaveral. The second burn, or the entry burn, helps to slow the stage down in preparation for entry back through the Earth's atmosphere. At about 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will then land back on Earth. The landing burn will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land back on land near the launch site today, around 8 minutes into mission. I should say that actually happens about a minute prior to that second engine cutoff.
Yep, you're right, Kate. So as the first stage is back on Earth, the second stage will cut off its single Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we wait for that all-important confirmation of a good orbital insertion. Then Dragon will begin its preparations and separate from the second stage. About 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we ought to get that great view from the forward camera showing Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage. And once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out those Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure that Dragon continues to increase the separation distance from the second stage.
The nose cone deploy sequence will initiate just before T plus 12 minutes and finish around T plus 15 minutes, which will expose Dragon's docking mechanism in advance
Stage
of
2
arrival.
RP1 load is complete.
All right, that call out there telling us that RP1 loading is now complete on Stage 1. Now, in advance, or excuse me, on, I think we heard actually Stage 2 there. Now, that docking mechanism exposure will be in advance of arrival to the International Space Station. Now, with that, let's head over to Leah at Johnson Space Center in Houston for another update on how things are going there with station preparation. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Kate. The space station team here in Houston is focused on the critical systems on the station, and everything continues to function as expected ahead of launch. So the teams have verified the command path from the ground up through our constellation of communication satellites to the station. Everything is nominal. We love that word, and the station will be ready to receive Dragon tomorrow should they launch tonight. Mission Control Houston is go for launch. Once the crew arrives at station, the Expedition 69 crew will be there to welcome the AX-2 crew on board. Right now, living in the station, we have 7 people. That includes NASA astronauts Frank Rubio, Woody Hoberg, and Steve Bowen, United Arab Emirates astronaut Sultan Al-Nayati, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Andrei Fedyayev, Sergei Prokopyev, and Dmitry Petelin. Flight Director Greg Whitney is on console now, leading flight controllers on the Orbit 3 team in Houston for launch, and Flight Director Marcos Flores will lead teams for docking tomorrow. A reminder that launch today will take about 16 hours to get to the station, with docking to the Node 2 Zenith, or space-facing port, scheduled just before 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Once Dragon is fully docked to the station, the teams here in Houston will assist the Axiom Space and Space Station astronauts with leak checks as they work to open hatches on both Dragon and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch open to take place about 2 hours after docking. That's it for us here in Mission Control Houston, and I will send it back over to the team in Hawthorne. Duke?
Thanks, Leah. And all of that is set to begin in just over 18 minutes from right now. And I got to say, the energy around here is certainly rising. As Leah just mentioned, once the crew launches, they will spend the next 16 hours in Dragon, catching up to the International Space Station. That time on orbit and in Dragon will feature a variety of tasks, including some planned photography, but about half of that time is scheduled for sleep, which the crew will absolutely need because once they reach the ISS, they have quite the schedule ahead of them. They will spend 8 days on station conducting a variety of science investigations and technology demonstrations, including radiation protection research, studies on how to create rain and how to enhance our understanding of dangerous thunderstorms, as well as DNA research with nanomaterials and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicines. Wow. When they are not hands-on with research, they will be participating in numerous outreach events connecting with groups around the world. John, for instance, will use the station's ham radio to share a message with students. Beyond all that, Commander Peggy Whitson has assured us that each of them will carve out some time to simply pause and look down at the planet below as it speeds by at a cool 17,500 miles per hour.
I mean, I would imagine that if I were in space, my face would just be up against the window the whole time. On station, just in the cupola the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
Now, as we've said before, we have an instantaneous launch window. That means that we have 1 second. We're targeting 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific Time. So just 16.5 minutes from
Stage
now.
2 LOX load has begun.
That call out, they're telling us that the liquid oxygen on stage 2 is now beginning, the liquid oxygen on is beginning to be loaded onto stage 2. That will wrap up around T-2 minutes. Now, I was talking about the instantaneous launch window because we are essentially chasing the space station. We're trying to catch up to it. It means that in order for everything to be precisely lined up in terms of how much propellant we're taking on board, and obviously we don't want to take too much because everything about space is weight. How much weight are you taking? And so we want to optimize our path to the International Space Station. And so we basically have that instantaneous moment to take off.
All right, and that moment is coming soon. And as we approach the final moments of our countdown to launch, Axiom Space CEO Mike Suffredini wanted to take a moment to reflect on this, the second Axiom Space mission.
This mission today is very meaningful for Axiom Space. It's a watershed moment because it's our opportunity to really start bringing the rest of the world to the International Space Station. We're honored that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is flying with us here today. The 2 crew members flying are fantastic. They've done a great job in training. Of course, John Schaffner's been with us for a while. He's a backup on AX-1. We're excited for him to fly. Of course, the commander's Peggy Whitson, and while she's the first woman commander for a commercial mission, that's a big deal to us. I really don't think it's a huge deal to Peggy. She's flown so many times. This is, like riding a bike. But we're very excited for this crew, and we're looking forward to their mission. So, we don't do this by ourselves. Axiom is a wonderful company with fantastic employees. They've done quite a bit of work to get to this point. The commander is one of our very own as well, but our thanks go out to the entire team that support us. Axiom done a fantastic job in preparing for the mission and the medical and all the work that's gone into getting the crews ready to go fly. SpaceX, which is a fantastic, reliable Dragon spacecraft and Falcon launch vehicle, have prepped the crew and the vehicle, and it's out on the launch pad ready to go. And of course, NASA, we can't do any of this without NASA, who has worked with us along the way, allowed us to have this opportunity, and will work with us on orbit. And of course, the investors. The reason why we get to do what we're doing as a company and build this space station and do these missions is because the investors that are with us along the way. So it's the entire team that has supported us and worked with us throughout this last several months as we prepared for this mission, and we're thankful to them all. All right, guys, you're going to have a great time on orbit. We're looking forward to seeing you there on orbit. From all of us here at Axiom, we wish you good luck and Godspeed.
Just under 13.5 minutes, and everything continues to look good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. Now, currently,
Peggy,
Falcon 9 began
we are still tracking no issues
35 minutes,
on Dragon
right on
for
time.
today's launch. We have continued weather evaluations, and for your awareness, we are monitoring an anvil cloud that is moving towards LC-39A. It's currently 5 miles away, and it just needs to remain outside of 3 miles for launch to continue. The weather officer is going to continue monitoring this cloud and will continue to provide updates to the launch teams. How copy?
Dragon copies, no issues on the vehicle, watching the cloud. We're thinking very dry spot.
Good readback, and just a reminder that for the Falcon 9 valve, the Falcon team is going to be performing that manual evaluation of the manifold pressure until T-minus 35 seconds. And if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. If the evaluation passes, there will be no call made, and we will continue with the countdown. So again, at T-minus 35 seconds following the manual evaluation, if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. But if there is no call, we have passed the checks, and we will continue with countdown.
Dragon copies. Manual evaluation. We'll call a hold if it's not passing the checks. Expect no call if it looks good.
Good read back.
I like that comment. Thinking dry thoughts. Now we're talking about propellant loading. RP1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're just about full. It'll finish up at the T-minus 6 minute mark. Densified liquid oxygen loading is continuing on the first stage and the second stage. Both stages well underway. First stage is nearing a completion, but it won't wrap up until T-minus 3 minutes. The second stage just began a few minutes ago. That'll wrap up at T-minus 2 minutes. As we get closer to launch, we will do various checkouts. One is the thrust vector controllers. These are what move the engine nozzles around on the first and second stage engine. And when we move those nozzles, we call it TVC wiggles. Those will be done inside 10 minutes. We'll also be doing checkouts of throttle valves on the engine. Now the range currently is go. Air and sea space are clear. The weather, you heard the briefing from the Corps up to the crew. We're watching one anvil cloud. It's within 5 miles, but it's got to just stay more than 3 miles away, and we will be go to fly. And meanwhile, the Dragon team also had reported they're working no issues. Everything is complete through the countdown. The comm checkouts are finished. The access arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed. The crew is strapped in and ready to go. We're coming up on final instructions of the crew. We'll hear that at T-minus 10 minutes. They'll configure their displays for launch. They'll get the last messages, and then we'll go into the terminal countdown sequence. Let's listen into the countdown net.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
And SpaceX Dragon, we can confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies. And on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Freedom today on its next trip to the International Space Station and the second Axiom crew mission. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
Let freedom fly.
Hear the crew calling back to the ground, let freedom fly. We see them applauding. Everything continuing to look good. We're coming up on 9 minutes to launch. Next major event is going to be engine chill at T-minus 7 minutes.
As John just said, at T-minus 7 minutes, we will begin to flow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps, which that is basically chilling the hardware, performing an engine chill prior to the full flow. We do that in order to help minimize the chances of the hardware experiencing any thermal shock when that full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen occurs. Now we can see some venting from the vehicle now, totally normal. It is that liquid oxygen just vaporizing as it comes into contact with the ambient air.
And Kate, maybe this is an opportunity. You know, we always use the word abort. This might be a chance to let everybody know that there are abort callouts in flight that we're going to hear. Those are just heads up to the crew that says, should a contingency occur, there's different actions that'll happen at each various stage of the flight when you're on first stage or when you're on second stage.
That's right. We should actually hear Commander Peggy Whitson calling those abort modes out as they are ascending and really getting to orbit. She is tracking everything on her, both her tablet as well on her leg, as well as the crew display above her head. So she is able to identify at which mode they are entering, and those modes identify basically where and what sequence Dragon would take at that point in time during the flight. Now we're about 10 seconds away from that engine chill for the first stage.
Engine chill has started.
All right, right on time. We've opened the valves that are letting liquid oxygen and kerosene fuel down to the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Our next major activity coming up at T-minus 6 minutes approximately. We'll hear the announcement that fuel loading is complete on the first stage. And one other comment, while we were hearing the briefing to the crew at the T-minus 10 minute mark, we also heard reference to a call out that may or may not be made at T-minus 35 seconds. Many of the checkouts of the Falcon 9 are done by computer in the last minute. There is one today that requires an engineer to look at some data. If, for example, that system had an issue, that would be called out at T-minus 35 seconds. Right now, everything continues to look good, though, on Falcon 9.
We also heard in the briefing that they are tracking an anvil cloud that at the time of the briefing was about 5 miles away from the pad. They are tracking it. It just needs to stay outside of 3 miles, so everything still continues to look okay on that front. The next call out that we'll hear in about 30 seconds is that Dragon has transitioned to the terminal count configuration. That's basically an indication that the Dragon spacecraft has taken over the spacecraft's countdown and will at that point be on internal power. At this point in time, RP-1 is now completely loaded, both on the first and second stages. LOX load continues on both stages. It'll wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes for first stage and T-minus 2 minutes for second stage.
Dragon tanks are pressurizing for Trongback retract.
Pressurization call out. We are putting pressurized gas helium onto the stage in preparation for opening up the clamp arm that's around the top of the second stage. That'll happen just at about the T-minus 4 minute mark. The clamp arm will open, and about 10 seconds after that, the strong back, the structure alongside the Falcon 9, will recline just about 2 degrees away. We've heard the call out, strong back is retracting. That starts the sequence now in the ground computer to open the arms and then recline that strong back about 2 degrees away. At liftoff, hydraulics will then pull the strong back to a position about 45 degrees away from the rocket as it flies out of the launch mount. You can see the arms opening up now around the second stage.
We should now be able to see that strong back retract just a couple degrees away from the launch vehicle. Upon liftoff, it will move back even further in order to clear the way for Falcon 9. Looks like we can start to see that movement now. This structure is what is utilized to horizontally integrate the vehicles while still in the hangar, as well as transport them horizontally to the launch pad and then raise them to their vertical launch position.
And we've got the strong back is now, you see a little bounce there as it stops.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And right on time, stage 1 LOX load is complete. We're down to just loading liquid oxygen on the second stage. That'll wrap up just after T-minus 2 minutes, at which point we'll have the 1 million pounds of propellant on board Falcon 9 ready to fly.
We can see the vehicle continuing to vent some of that gaseous or the liquid oxygen that has now vaporized.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
We have a live view there of the SpaceX team here at headquarters in mission control on the left-hand side, as well as the Axiom team from their own mission control as well on the right.
Dragon SpaceX for weather. Looks like the system has cleared, and we're looking like we're go for launch for weather.
All right, we've heard a good news information to the crew.
Dragon copies.
We're letting them know that it appears the weather is going to avoid the area.
That is great news indeed.
Just waiting now for the call out. Liquid oxygen load complete on the second stage.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Ground gas closeouts, expect loud venting.
At venting, we're now bleeding off excess pressure in the strongback. That's what's giving that large white plume as cold gas meets the warm Florida air and condenses the moisture. We're coming up on 1 minute where the flight computers will take over the sequence. Let's listen in to the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon and the Axiom-2 crew.
FTS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Dragon is in countdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Dragon copies. Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff, Falcon 9. Go Axiom.
Stage 1 Alpha.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Together we expand what is possible in low Earth orbit. Ad Astra and Godspeed AX2.
T plus 36 seconds into flight. A great view of Falcon 9 heading to space.
Power telemetry is nominal.
Stage
1 throttle down.
Power telemetry nominal. We're into the throttle bucket. Is the first stage is throttled down power on the Merlin engines in preparation for max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Faster than the speed of sound as we're getting great views from the first stage camera looking back at Kennedy Space Center and Complex 39A.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Max Q.
We're out of the throttle bucket.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
We're at full power and that call on 1 Bravo, that's another one of those abort modes. As we get higher and faster, the logic for Dragon, should a contingency occur, changes from stage to stage.
Impact chill is underway.
Chill announcement says we're getting the turbopump on the second stage engine cooled down in preparation for its light up coming up in just another minute from now. Again, great views looking back, and you can see the contrail as we left 39A and the shadow of the contrail against the cloud deck around Florida. And we're coming up 3 big sequences and a view live of the crew inside Dragon. They're getting ready. We're going to get 3 events here. Main engine cutoff, stage separation,
down.
And then we're going to light the second stage engine. We've heard the throttle down in preparation for stage separation.
Eco.
2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
And back ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
All right, stage separation. We've lit the second stage engine. The first stage is into the boost back burn, working its way back towards Cape Canaveral. Views on the left side, that's the first stage. Engines running as we come back to the launch site or the landing site. Second stage engine nozzle is visible on the right side as we're powering the Axiom-2 crew into low Earth orbit on the way to the International Space Station. Waiting for call out that the boost back burn is complete.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
Right on time. First stage completed the first of 3 burns heading back to the landing site. Second stage continuing on power and on trajectory.
Acquisition signal, Bermuda.
We head northeast, the Bermuda ground station.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Bermuda is listening into the vehicle now.
Nominal trajectory.
And the crew hears the call out of a nominal trajectory. So 4 minutes into flight, everything continuing to go well. First stage heading back, and there's the crew on the second stage getting the ride into orbit to the space station. Coming up, we're waiting for the next trajectory call out from the guidance officer.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear those words. A nominal trajectory for Dragon.
Copy. Nominal trajectory.
And maybe even a little bit of excitement in the crew's voice. Commander Peggy Whitson calling back down, hearing that call out from GNC of a nominal trajectory. Left side of the screen, you can see the first stage. It's now beginning to orient itself so that the engines are pointed down towards the land as we will be descending towards landing zone 1 in Cape Canaveral. The 4 titanium grid fins have all deployed. They'll help guide They'll guide the first stage through once we get into the atmosphere following the entry burn, which will be coming up here in another couple of minutes. On the right-hand side, the second stage with the Dragon capsule on top, heading up the eastern seaboard of the U.S. We've just heard the call out of Boston. That's the New Hampshire tracking station, has picked up the signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
GNC continuing to make those call outs that we want to hear. Everything continuing to look good. And the crew echoing them right back down. Good comms with the crew. We've been able to bring some live video shots from inside the capsule as they're headed to space. And there's another view of the crew.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we heard that the startup burn for that stage 1 booster, you can see it there on the left-hand side of your screen, has now begun.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And conclusion of that entry burn, that burn helps to slow the vehicle down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. The first stage sees high drag, which scrubs roughly 70% of the velocity by the time that landing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear that call out. Everything.
Nominal trajectory.
Beautiful view of planet Earth coming to us from the second stage views on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, our first view of the Space Coast once again. This booster is attempting a landing at LZ-1.
Stage 1 transonic.
That booster is now traveling near the speed of sound. Live view coming to you from one of our tracking cameras. We can see the grid fins actuating to help steer the booster down.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
Standing by to...
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
There you
Stage
can
1 landing confirmed.
You can see that her stage has landed back at LZ1. This is the first time that we have performed a land landing on a crew mission. Coming up next will be second engine cutoff, or SECO, and that's where after that engine cuts off, the second stage will coast for a few minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
We're expecting SECO to occur in about 20 seconds.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
Commander Peggy Whitson continuing to call out the abort modes.
Fico.
All right, on time shutdown of that second engine. Also confirming that the launch escape system is now disarmed.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
All right, and there's that call out. We can confirm good orbital insertion.
Copy, nominal insertion.
Dragon SpaceX, launch escape system disarmed.
We can see the crew playing with their
Dragon
harnesses.
copy.
Now that they are in 0G, which I think we just got a view of our 0G Stuffy. Clearly the crew is having fun already. Right after liftoff, I think we heard a laugh coming from Commander Peggy Whitson, which, being a NASA legend and one of the most decorated astronauts of all time, it's amazing to hear that even a space veteran as she
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
still has fun at liftoff. The next event that we have coming up at just around T+12 minutes is Dragon separation. That's where the Dragon spacecraft and trunk, so collectively referred to as the Dragon spacecraft, will separate from the second stage.
Acquisition signal, Newfoundland.
After that separation, we will begin to deploy the nose cone, which exposes the forward bulkhead thrusters as well as the forward hatch. That forward hatch is what the capsule utilizes to autonomously dock to the International Space Station. Going from left to right, everyone's having fun, clearly. We have mission specialist Rayana Barnawi. To the right of her is pilot John Schaffner. Then we have Commander Peggy Whitson. And on the far right, mission specialist Ali Al-Karni. We can see that the excess strap on some of the harnesses, as well as the writing utensil for their tablets, they continue to play around with as they are experiencing 0G for the first time. At least we can say that for 3 of the 4 astronauts on board today. Now we are standing by for Dragon separation, which is expected to occur in the next few seconds.
Dragon separation.
And
wow.
There you can see live on your screen that Dragon shrunken capsule.
Dragon copy. Dragon copy.
That's a really cool view. That's
Dragon SpaceX launch director. A very great flight. Wish you safe travels. A few words from our chief engineer as well.
Thanks for putting your trust in the Falcon 9 team. Hope you enjoyed the ride to space. Have a great trip on Dragon. Welcome home to 0G, Peggy.
That was SpaceX Chief Engineer Bill
Happy to be
Gerstenmaier.
here. It was a phenomenal ride.
Make sure you share the joy of zero-G with your crew.
We will do that.
Already you can see Dragon's Draco thrusters activating.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. Nose cone deploy is in progress. Hooks are opening.
Dragon copies.
All right, great news there to let us know that the hooks, there are two sets of hooks.
Signal, Bermuda.
Two sets of hooks that are now disengaging. And once that is complete, we are able to deploy, open the nose cone. We should see that nose cone deploy in about a minute. It's a great view on the right-hand side of your screen from the Falcon 9 second stage, looking at the Dragon Freedom capsule. And of course, the crew on the left-hand side playfully acclimating to their new zero-G environment. You can see the zero-G indicator in the background. And I love this view. This view is over the shoulders of Commander Peggy Whitson, who here is on the left-hand side, or the left seat, and pilot John Schaffner is on the right seat here, looking at what they're looking at. These are the crew display panels that they utilize in flight to track which thrusters are firing, what phase of the mission that they are in, as you can see, where they are around the globe. All right, as we can see, crew getting acclimated. The nose cone hooks are in the process of being disengaged, so they are starting to open. And once those that is complete, we are able to open the nose cone and expose the forward hatch.
So incredible. Well, today's launch is certainly one more for the history books, and yet the story is just getting underway. Leah, with the crew officially on their way to the International Space Station, how are things tracking there in mission control at Johnson Space Center?
Hey, Duke. Well, the chase has officially begun with Dragon heading toward the International Space Station. So with the successful launch of Axiom Mission 2 at 7 p.m. Eastern, the teams here at NASA's Johnson Space Center are going to be monitoring Dragon's flight to the International Space Station over the next 16 hours. Our role in this journey really kicks in at a period called Integrated Operations. This is where Dragon is much closer to the station. And at this point, NASA, SpaceX, and Axiom space teams are all in lockstep to get the crew safely docked. The teams here are preparing for a docking of AX-2 to the station at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. We're going to begin joint coverage of that phase at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But for now, that'll be it for us in Mission Control Houston tonight, and I'll be back with you tomorrow for docking. Back to you, Kate and Duke.
Yeah. Now, over the next 16 hours, Dragon will execute a series of burns to gradually raise and line up the AX-2 crew for docking with the International Space Station in what we refer to as activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. Now, in just a few minutes, the crew will get to change out of their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfortable for flight, and will enjoy their first meal aboard the spacecraft. I'm sure that'll be a lot of fun, the first time for 3 of them eating in microgravity. And then
Good, Haley.
at 2 p.m. Pacific, they will get ready for a rest period that will last about 10 hours, 8 hours for actual sleeping, and a couple hours for pre- and post-sleep activities. And then before they arrive at the station, we'll have two potential opportunities to chat briefly with the crew on orbit. One later this morning around 11:10 a.m. Pacific, and one early tomorrow about 12:10 a.m. Pacific. While we're hopeful that one of these will work out, neither opportunity is guaranteed as they are dependent on both crew schedule and ground station coverage. But if we're able to support, we'll make an announcement on our social media channels no later than 15 minutes before the event start time. But in the meantime, be sure to keep tabs on the mission at axiomspace.com, and you can also keep track of Dragon's flight on spacex.com/launches.
And even if we aren't able to talk live with the crew, we will continue to provide updates on the mission across our social media channels. And starting at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, 4:30 a.m. Pacific on Monday, May 22nd, we will pick back up with our live joint coverage of the AX-2 crew's approach and docking to station with NASA. Please keep an eye on Axiom and SpaceX social channels for updates, as there will be plenty of incredible moments to share with you over the next 10 days. And so from all of us at Axiom Space, thank you SpaceX, thank you NASA, this is just the beginning, and thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you soon.